Okay, so here are the answers to your homework. You may need to kind of pause as you're checking. But in order to find the x-intercepts, factored out a common factor and then factored as a difference of squares. And then the range, since it had an odd degree, is just all real, so we didn't need to use our calculator for that. Okay, here's the next one. Again, to find the x-intercepts, I factored out a common factor of 3x, and then I did the magic question to factor the remaining trinomial. So then my x-intercepts were 0, 3, and 2. And again, with the range, it's all reals because we have an odd degree. Okay, the third one, I factored out a common factor of 3x squared, which again left me with the difference of squares, and that factored into x plus 4, x minus 4. So we had x-intercepts at 0, -4, and 4. But then if we look at our answers, if we count in the multiplicity, it should be 0 with the multiplicity of 2, and then -4 and +4. This time, we had an even number for our degree. So it's not going to be all real, so this is where we needed to use our calculator. And again, I provided the window of what your min and max values should be for the x and y. So you can adjust that. So when we type it in, the range is always low to high. So here is my lowest point. So to find that, I can use the calculator. I'll hit second, trace, and then I'm going to choose option number 3, which is the min. I can choose one of the 2 points, it doesn't matter, but I'll go left bound, enter, right bound, enter, and then hit enter again, and it comes out to be -192. So that's my lowest point, and then my highest point as it continues on to positive infinity. Okay, and then the last one, it was already factored, so we didn't need to factor. So our x-intercept should be at a +2 with the multiplicity of 2, and then a -2 with the multiplicity of 2. And again, you don't need to worry about the -1/4 in finding your x-intercepts. But the -4 we'll kind of use as we're finding the y-intercept. So since it's in factored form, we said we plug zeros in for the variables, which I did down here. So then it gives me -1/4, and then it's -2 squared times +2 squared. So -1/4 times 4 times 4 gives us a y-intercept to be a -4. And then again, since our degree was even, the range is not all reals. So it's low to high. So the arrows are pointing down, so it's continuing forever in the negative direction. And then to find the highest point, I'm looking for the max. So again, we can use our calculator, type in second, trace, choose option number 4, I believe, and find the max, do the left bound, right bound, and enter, and it would be at 0. So our range is from -infinity to 0. Okay. So now we can go ahead and pull up your notes from SchoolFusion. You can find the notes. They're titled Notes 4.5, Synthetic Division and Graphing, Student B Block. Those are in the Chapter 4 folder on SchoolFusion. Okay, so you can pause the video while everybody gets their notes up and ready. So today, we're only covering like the first 2 slides of the notes. We're just going to get into the synthetic division. A, since we have a little bit shorter class, and B, I'm not there to show you like the calculator part. So we're just going to review kind of synthetic division. So I have some steps that you can follow. Okay, so we're given the problem 5x cubed plus 6x plus 8, and we're dividing it by x plus 2. So to find or to set up our problem, first thing we need to be careful is any of our missing terms. So if we look here, I have a 5x cubed, but what I'm missing is the x squared. So if you want to rewrite it, adding in the 0 with the x squared, you can. Okay. Because now when we write our coefficients, we now have the 0 there. We definitely have to include when we write it. So I'm going to list my coefficients. and it has to be like in decreasing order. So it's 5, 0, 6, and 8. Whoops, okay. And then I'm dividing it by, I take whatever I'm dividing it by, that expression, and I'm going to set it equal to 0 and solve. So I'm going to subtract 2. So I'm technically, when I set it up to do my synthetic, I'm going to be dividing by -2. Okay. So our first step, and we kind of have, well, now it's our second step since we've set up our problem. We're going to bring down the first coefficient. So I'm going to bring down the 5. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the -2 times 5. And that's going to give me a -10. Okay. Then, now we're just going to start kind of adding our columns. So 0 plus -10 gives me -10. And now I'm going to multiply -2 times the 10. So that's going to give me a positive 26 when I add those together. Or it gives me a positive 20. And then when I add 6 and 20 together, it gives me 26. Then I'm going to multiply -2 times 26. And that's going to give me -52. And then when I add 8 plus a -52, it gives me a -44. Okay, so we kind of did our step number 3, and we repeated it until we got to the end of our problem. So now when we rewrite, or we write our answer, we're going to write a new polynomial. And when we start with our variables, the exponent, we're going to start with a degree 1 less than the original polynomial. So if we look back up at our original, it started with a cubed. So when we rewrite our answer, okay, we start with this coefficient here, the 5. The degree is 1 less, so it's going to be 5x squared minus 10x plus 26. Now, we do have this number here of the -44. Okay, there's 2 ways that we can write it. Okay, one way is writing it as minus, since it was a negative number, 44 over our divisor, which was the x plus 2. I think that's technically the official way to write it, but sometimes we can write it as 5x squared minus 10x plus 26, and then we do r for remainder of -44. Okay, so that is, so either of these would be acceptable answers. The first one I think is the more mathematical answer, but either of those would be fine. So let's take a look at one more example. Okay, so I have the steps still written here. So again, notice I have some x's kind of missing. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite it, filling in those missing terms. You don't have to. Whoa. Okay, I have x to the 4th minus 8x cubed. I'm missing the square term. I'm going to put 0x squared plus 24x. And what we might forget to do is we need to add a 0 at the end for the constant that was missing. Okay, so now to find out what I'm going to divide by, is I take the x minus 2, set it equal to 0. So to solve, I would add 2 to both sides. So now my divisor is going to be a 2. Okay, so I'll put the 2 out front because that's what we're dividing by, and then I'll list my coefficients. So it's 1, -8, 0, 24, and 0. Okay, so in following our steps, we're going to bring down that first coefficient of the 1, and then we're going to multiply the 2 times 1, so that gives me 2. And then we add our columns together. So -8 plus 2 gives me a -6. Then I'm going to take the 2 and multiply it by -6. So it's going to give me a -12. And then when I add my columns together, 0 plus -12 is -12. Okay, then next I'm going to multiply 2 times the -12. And that's going to give me a -24. And if I add 24 plus -24, that's 0. And then if I do the last set, 2 times 0 give me 0, and 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay, so now then we can go ahead and write out our final answer. So I have a leading coefficient of 1, so it's just going to be x, and then I'm doing a degree less, so it's going to be x cubed minus 6x squared minus 12x, and then I don't have to put the plus 0 or anything. I can just leave it just like that. Okay, so hopefully this wasn't too bad. Okay, and if we did have a little bit of trouble, next class we will be looking at some polynomials where we're going to have to do synthetic division in order to help us come up with some kind of polynomial that we're then able to factor, so then we can get our x-intercepts. So if you're having a little trouble with synthetic, we will get it squared away next class. Okay, and then your homework will be a worksheet that reviews the 4.1 material as well as a few problems from the synthetic division. All righty, thank you.